All right, so good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited to offer this week of professional development for folks in relation to Countdown to College. This is our first time hosting a week like this, so like I said, we're excited that you're here. Just a couple of reminders. If you can make sure that you are muted, that would be wonderful. We do have a lot of folks on this morning. And we'll have a lot of folks joining us for all of the programs this week. So if you can just make sure you're muted, we would appreciate it. This session is being recorded, just as an FYI. And just a reminder for CEUs, how you'll get your CEU credit for attending this live broadcast is in 24 hours, you will get a follow-up email, and it will have a link in it then. And if you have any questions, in just a moment, I'll have a slide up with your different presenters this morning and our email addresses. So feel free to reach out to us. If you have any questions as we go through the presentation this morning, you should see a panel on your screen. Mine's on the right side of my screen with a questions line in gray, and you're welcome to shoot them over then. And we have some different folks on this morning who are going to be presenting, but then also helping to answer your questions. So once again, we appreciate you joining us today, and we're excited to get started. Here is your slate of speakers this morning. We will kick off with Tanika McMillan, who's the Countdown to College coordinator, and then we'll move over to Mark Wiles, who's the director of CFNC Pathways. And then after that, we're going to have a best practices panel that will include Callie Cresley with Appalachian State. She's the college advisor there. And then Christine Lazari, who's the school counselor at North Brunswick High School. And then we have a couple of CFNC regional reps on this morning as well. And we're excited to talk a little bit about best practices for Countdown to College, both face-to-face and virtually, depending on what you're going to have this morning. And that'll be a little bit more of a discussion where, if you have something to add when we get to that point, you're welcome to unmute and share or just send it over to chat. And my name is April Query. I'm the CFNC Regional and Community Services Manager. And I have worked with CFNC for 15 years, and I work with our outreach team, which is our CFNC Regional Rep team, who works in the schools across the state virtually or face-to-face. So once again, we're excited to get started this morning. We're going to start with some Countdown to College basics, which Tanika McMillan will cover. And then we'll move into CFNC Professional Center Professional Tools with Mark Wiles. And then, as I said, we'll move into the Best Practices panel. So I'm going to stop now and let Tanika talk a little bit about some basics here.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Tanika McMillan, and I'm a pleasure to meet all of you virtually. What is North Carolina Countdown to College? North Carolina Countdown to College is a statewide initiative that is sponsored by CFNC and CACRO. So in 2020, more than 400 high schools participated in this exciting event. Approximately, we had about 20,000 students that applied to colleges in the state of North Carolina. College Application Week actually began as a pilot program in the state in 2005 with just one high school, which was under the federally funded Gear Up North Carolina grant. This event grew in 2006 to serve students in 15 Gear Up high schools, and it continued to function in the pilot stage. As other high schools outside the Gear Up program learned about the pilot, they asked if they could also participate. CFNC, otherwise known as College Foundation of North Carolina, and CACRO, the Carolinas Association of Collegiate Registrars and Admissions Officers, also joined forces to aid in expansion and support. In 2008, College Application Week became a statewide event with 293 high schools participating. During this period, North Carolina's annual event became a pattern for dozens of other states to create their own annual week-long and month-long programs. It wasn't until 2019 that we became a month-long event. That year was the first year that we were a month-long event to include other initiatives such as RDS and FAFSA. North Carolina Countdown to College goals. Our goal is really to increase the number of students who pursue post-secondary education by assisting high school seniors with the college admissions process, which would include residency or RDS, FAFSA, and applications, and ensuring that each participant student submits at least one admissions application. Much of the focus of North Carolina Countdown to College is geared towards first generation and low-income students. The North Carolina Countdown to College, which is formerly known as College Application Week, encourages all high school students to apply again to college early in their senior year. North Carolina Countdown to College month consists of various themes. And at a glance, what it could possibly look like is week 1, Imagine Your Future, which would focus on events such as benefits of going to college, career choices, and corresponding courses of study, or choosing college that's right for you. Week 2 could move on into categories such as Financial Aid 101, FAFSA, and/or RDS. This is really focusing on students' preparation to be ready to submit their college application, and topics could cover reviewing college application requirements for schools, again, RDS or Residence Determination Service, essay writing, paying for college, or the federal financial aid, filing the FAFSA. Week 3 is our big week, and which is we're famously known for, which is College Application Week. This is a week that everyone's super excited about. This week really focuses on getting students to apply to college. And during that week, outside of submitting your college application, it could include information on the fee waivers, scheduling time in the computer lab to assist students with completing and submitting applications, depending on the regulations in your site during this pandemic that we're currently in, and submitting your transcripts. And our last week is I Applied, Now What? Even though the college application week has ended at that point, you can still focus on topics such as finishing the FAFSA, what students can expect after they apply, completing any applications that they may have started, and event survey. College application week this week is held October 18th through October the 22nd, 2001. And as a reminder, none of the North Carolina community colleges will charge an application fee. Majority of colleges and universities will accept the SAT, ACT, and NAC fee waiver. And lastly but not least, a list of all our colleges and universities that will be waiving their application fee can be found on our website, cfnc.org/C2C. I do not think that that formal list is up there at this moment, but it should be coming hopefully within the next week or two.
Thank you so much, Tanika. If anyone has any questions about some of the foundations of Countdown to College, you're welcome to send a message over in the questions section, and we can help answer those. A couple of reminders, and one to emphasize one of the points that Tanika made is make sure you all visit cfnc.org/C2C. Those different weeks that Tanika talked about, we have virtual programs and help sessions scheduled already. And so if you're looking for some extra resources to do with your students, visit there, check out the calendar, and take a look at whatever it is you may find, because there's, like I said, there's a lot there for you to utilize. I know some of you are doing things in the classroom, and some of you may not be this year, or perhaps you're still not sure which way you'll go. So there's some resources there. We wanted to make sure we offered virtual programming. And the other thing I'll mention that's really important that you'll hear about if you attend different sessions this week is, in order for your students to get those application fee waived during college application week, they have to start their application on cfnc.org. This is a CFNC initiative. It's not an initiative through any other sort of application resource. So students do have to begin their applications on cfnc.org. I can't emphasize that enough. If the student does end up wandering off, so if there's a linked campus on CFNC, perhaps the application isn't there. Most of them are, but perhaps one of them isn't, and they're linked off to a different resource to apply. They have to come back to CFNC to start their next one, especially if that's one of the ones that's being waived that week. They're being waived if they start on CFNC. So I'm going to stop, and I'm going to pass this over to Mark Wiles now, and he's going to talk to you all about the Professional Center and professional tools. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Can you see my screen okay, and can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mark Wiles, and I'm with the UNC System Office. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning for a few minutes. And as this initial slide shows, we're going to be talking about two different major tools, the CFNC Professional Center and then the new CFNC Professional Tools. And we're really in a time of transition. So as we planned our discussion with you today, we spent some time thinking about the best way to approach this. And so here's how we've decided that it's going to be likely most helpful for you. We'd like to go through the current Professional Center with a focus on some tips and features that are especially appropriate for this period coming up with NC Countdown to College. But then we also wanted to take this time to talk with you about the new professional tools. It's really a sneak peek, it's a preview, and give you some tips about the upcoming transition, because while the new professional tools is not yet live, we expect that by the time we are in NC Countdown to College, you're going to have the option to use either. So we'll be coaching you in the next number of weeks, mostly online as we send emails, and also as we put information on the website as to which is the best place to go for you. But I'd like to walk you through both of those today, and I certainly invite your questions, and I'll be glad to answer. We'll be glad to answer as many as we can during the session today. If we can't get to those, we do, because of the system we're using, have the opportunity to follow up after. So I invite you and thank you for those questions. Let's step forward just as a reminder of what CFNC, the Professional Center, is all about. It's a tool for you as an educator to help you plan and implement your career and college planning program. Here are some of the major features as we think about your work. Applications and transcripts, so that you can see where your students have applied, where your transcripts are going, so that you can also view different details about the transcript activity of your students. FAFSA as well as RDS. So we're going to take a look at those reports here in just a moment. If you don't yet have a Professional Center account, here are some details about how you can obtain that. And if you go to cfnc.org and look at Education Professional, it'll give you the same information. So you don't have to jot this down now. Just go to cfnc.org, Education Professional, and you can click on the Professional Center. It will give you the same information. Now, a few points that I think are really helpful, especially in the next few weeks as you step toward October and NC Countdown to College. One is this connection that you have with your students. One of the frequently asked questions that we hear is professionals who reach out to us and they say, I'm not seeing the students that I would expect. The key is for them to be connected to your school within their cfnc.org account. So this connection, as it notes here at the bottom of the screen, can happen either when they initially create their CFNC account or after the fact by the students signing in and changing that connection. So I'm going to play this animation here. Once they make this change, your viewing them is automatic. So I'm simulating here a student going into their profile. This is in the dashboard section. I'm opening school connections, and then I can see here, in this case, I'm connected to Grimsley High School. But let's say I've transferred. So I need to make a change, and I can change it here, and I can be connected to multiple schools if I would like. So there's a tip that I hope can be helpful for you to give you a better view of your students' data. Now, for you as an educator trying to navigate over to Professional Center, there are several ways to do it. You can navigate to cfnc.org, go to the Education Professionals tab, and then go down to Professional Center. It's in the left nav here. Notice the information that I mentioned a moment ago about requesting an account, and then here's a button, so access the Pro Center. Another way you could do it is simply by bookmarking procenter.cfnc.org. And then the last is through your dashboard. I won't show that for the sake of time, but your dashboard once you've signed in. Now let's go through a couple of tools that I think are helpful. One is students and groups. I'm going to play this animation just to illustrate the different ways that you can search. It's also helpful as we, in a moment, contrast that with the new professional tools. So here, I've just typed James, and I can find students where they have a first or last name of James. Here, I'm clicking and taking a look at my students by grade. Grade is determined by the grade they have selected in their account. So they can change that at any time, just as we saw them change a moment ago, their school connection. I can browse by last name. And then I can use Student Finder to take a look at various characteristics. So this is like running a filter. So I can filter by age or graduation year and search for students that way. Now, I'll highlight also here in the Professional Center the duplicate account report. Notice we're still in students and groups. We're in that tab. We're at the bottom of the screen now. If you click on this report, you can do a couple of things. First, as you would guess, the name of the report tells you the primary purpose, and that is to look for your students who you think perhaps have multiple accounts. Maybe they created one in the 8th grade, they've created another in the 10th grade, and they aren't sure how to log in. They're not sure if they have multiple accounts. This is a really helpful tool for you to go in and guide them, so that you could say, oh yes, I see here that there are 2 usernames for you. You need to choose which one you're going to go into. It's also an easy way for you just to run a roster. So this is not an intended purpose of the report, but very helpful for you to see your student names, their account names or their usernames, when they last signed in, and their student ID. So that's if they have entered it into cfnc.org. Student portfolios, I won't go into this because it's going to be changing so substantially, but this is a piece that if you, in let's say a month from now, when we have the new professional tools rolled out, if you're wanting to see the student portfolio, you'll need to go to the current professional center. We won't yet have it ready in professional tools. So I'll leave it at that for now. So let's take a look at a few reports that we have found professionals using quite frequently during, especially the fall. The first is college applications by college, because here we're taking a look at where your students are applying. So I have the opportunity to go in here, choose the time frame. In this case, I'm choosing this calendar year. And then I can see, for instance, right now, for my high school, I'm seeing that Appalachian State University is the first. I see Wake Technical Community College as the 4th. So it gives me an opportunity to see those top and then also to drill down. This is another way to look at it. Top 40 colleges applied to. So you're still in this mode looking at the college names, and then when you click on those, you can see where the students are applying. So here I'm taking a look. This is a student whose last name is Joshua, and I'm seeing where they are applying. Another popular report during this period is the transcript tracking report. So first, when you open it up, you'll need to select the student. In this case, I've selected the name Angela Brown, and then I can click View Details to see this information. So I can see that there are 2 transcripts. Now, a couple of things that are helpful, I believe, in remembering how this is reported. The first thing is that when a student who is currently enrolled at your high school makes a transcript request, it will create 2. Now, that's not the case if a student has already graduated. They only need their final transcript coming from your high school to that institution. But if they're currently enrolled, then it will create a request for a current transcript, and we can see this in transcript type. We can see the status is that it was successful, it was completed, there was the transaction date, and then so far the college has not exported that. So this is much like a mailbox in that the transcript is available to the college almost immediately. But our institutions across the state ask typically for 2 to 3 weeks for them to process it on the back end to get it linked to the application. So if, let's say, ASU would contact the student and say, we don't see your transcript right now, or have you sent it, the student could show or tell them the transaction ID. That might help them look it up. But you as an educator could also pull up that transaction ID here, and you could also, with the link here on the far right, view an unofficial copy of that transcript. This second line is the final transcript that will be triggered at the end of the year, and that's why it has a status of pending. It should not go at this time. It will go when final grades are posted. Now, the transcript summary report is also here in this section, the reports section. And I just wanted to highlight this as an easy way to look at a high level, that's the name, summary, at a high level to see where your students are sending transcripts. You can see some of the same details that we just noted in the detailed report, but it's at a higher level. Let's move now to the RDS completion report. So this does not let you know if the student has been declared in-state or out-of-state for tuition purposes, but it does let you know, as you think about this key part of C2C, if they have submitted the process. So sometimes students, as you know, with applications, FAFSA and RDS will say, as you ask them, oh yes, I submitted that or I finished it. This gives you an opportunity to go in and see, did that actually happen? So this student, or these two test students, have not finished the process. Application progress report lets me see where they are, so I can look up a student and then see that, for instance, this student at the top line here has an in-progress application to North Carolina State University, but they've not submitted. On the other hand, I see some down below, such as Wake Technical Community College. This student has submitted the application. So that's the college application progress report. It's available for those colleges that are using, about 90 or so are using the CFNC application. And just to add to what April mentioned a moment ago, the benefit of your students going to CFNC.org, the application hub, as that starting place, aside from C2C, is that it will take your students to the preferred application at that institution. So if they are asking their students to complete, let's say it's a common app or it's a platform app that the institution has on their own, it will lead them to that. And so that's why it's so important during C2C, during C2C, to begin there. Finish the FAFSA is the last report that I'll mention here in our current professional center, and I'll just highlight what it looks like. I am not an expert in this area. We have others on the line today who are. So if you have questions, I invite you to type those in for the Finish the FAFSA experts. But I wanted to highlight that not only does it show if they have submitted the FAFSA, but it shows any issues. So I think that's really helpful, not only as a tool so you can see if they've done it, but also that you can coach them toward resolution. Now let's transition to the second part that I wanted to mention, and that is the new professional tools. This resource, also called ProTools, that will be coming in the next several weeks. We'll be able to give you a firm date here before long. So it's a big time for us. We certainly are excited to roll this out to you and to hear your feedback, because for over 20 years we have used the Professional Center. And this step forward to ProTools represents a totally new tool. So we've not taken this foundation and built on it or changed it. It's a totally new foundation that we think has a number of key advantages, but also, in addition to the advantages that are readily apparent, is the fact that it's more flexible for us as we move forward, such that 6 months from now, 12 months from now, as we want to add features, functionality, we have much greater flexibility to do so. Here are a few of the areas that we think are an advantage as we think about the new ProTools. It has an all-new user interface. I'm sure that's readily apparent here as you look at the left image on this slide. And it has easier navigation and reporting. Streamlined account management. We'll talk more about that in a second. Reporting on NCcareers.org career assessments. And then easier access to support. So let's step forward with a few previews here for you. I'm going to play this simulation just to show you some of the easier navigation and the reporting tools. I'm clicking here. Notice it's all in this left nav, so I can click on the major sections and it opens up the tools that I have within. Here's a look at the application progress report. We saw that a moment ago in the current. Finish the FAFSA. Here's transcript tracking. Notice here it's all combined. So now I'm clicking on this student's name and I see the detail here. So we'll provide detailed training as we step forward. But again, I wanted you to see where we stand with some of these tools. Let's take a look at streamlined account access. This is perhaps one of the biggest things as we think about for the experience for educators. For the last 20 years, we've had a separate login, a separate username and password. You'll no longer need that. We won't be using what we've called that PAC code, Professional Access Account Key. So now you'll be accessing ProTools with a CFNC.org username and password. It will be an account that you have with CFNC.org that is enabled. In other words, that privilege is added to your account. And I'll give you a couple of tips on that in just a moment, something that you can do now to help make that a smoother transition. Now, a few illustrations about how the new ProTools is connected to NCcareers. Notice here I'm looking at the Career Clusters Match Report, and when I click on the results, I'm linked over to those occupations that the students saw. Same way with here. If I'm in the Interest Profiler report, I can see student level information. This student's name is Next Gen Test. Let's take a look and see. Here's matching occupations in the work values sorter. Again, gives me the opportunity to see what the student sees as they look at this information on NCcareers.org. So coming out of the gate in this first version, it's student level reporting. But I'll share this tip with you, and that is the export functionality. Notice here in the upper right, allows you to export in an Excel spreadsheet. So this would allow for some, I'll call it school level reporting, even though it's really not that, because it's not on the screen, it's not embedded in the tool. But if you're looking for a way to look at a large number of your students at once, then the Excel spreadsheet is a great way to do that, because once it's in the spreadsheet, then you're able to sort those columns and look at the data in some different ways. Now, easier access to support. I wanted to highlight the ProTools help at the upper part of your navigation. And here it's set up the same way, but as you click on the left navigation, it guides you through some best practices and guides you into seeing some of the key features that we think will be really helpful for you. It also provides some background information on the data. It helps you better understand, let's say when you click on this button or when you view this set of data, what you're really looking at. Now, wrapping up, a couple of slides left. I think you'll really like the fact that we're not sunsetting, we're not turning off the Professional Center as soon as Professional Tools comes live. So for a while during this academic year, they will both be available. And then at some point when we think the transition has happened successfully, when accounts have been transferred, when it looks like everything is ready, then we'll let you know, and we'll be turning off the current Professional Center. So what can you do now? I would encourage you to make sure that you have an account, a CFNC.org account that uses your school email address. That's going to be the requirement we have for your CFNC.org account to be enabled in this way, to have this additional functionality to go over to ProTools. So not a Gmail or a Yahoo. So you can go into your profile, just go to your dashboard, then My Profile. There's an email address section there, and just change it from your Gmail over to your school or organization email address. Also, I would encourage you to watch your email, the ProCenter listserv, also the Education Professional tab that we took a look at a moment ago. And there we'll be sharing with you launch and training information that will be happening this fall. So I think that's what we have here in this section. Yes, I'm going to end here and pass it back over to you.
Thank you. And I have one question for you from an audience member once you are able to pass it back over. I know it might be hard to do, for me anyway, it's hard to do two things at once.
There we go. I'm going to pass it back over to you, April. Is that the correct way?
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
All right. And I'm just going to come on down to the next section and then read your question to you, and then we will be moving on with the best practices panel in just a moment.
Great.
Okay, and give me 1 second. Okay. All right, so the question was in relation to RDS. So someone says, when looking at the report regarding RDS completion, I noticed that two specific students did finish RDS, but they're not showing up as finished. If that happens with any students, what should they do?
So let me make sure I'm understanding correctly. It sounds as if it's not a reporting issue. In other words, you see the students you expect to see. They are connected to your school, but it sounds like it's an issue of they're seeing one thing on their end. Their understanding is that they finished it, but in your report, it is not the case. Is that an accurate assessment, April, as you read the question?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, my mind goes in two directions, and I know we have some RDS experts on the phone here too. One direction is just for the student to check with the RDS team to make sure indeed that everything is finished. But my second thought is if that persists, we would really like to check the report itself just to make sure there's not some issue with data coming through for you and that there's any inaccuracy. Let me turn to some others on the line today to see what your experience has been. Have you experienced this? Do you have any additional suggestions?
So I think what might be helpful is if you have a student that you know for a fact, for example, completed RDS, but they're not showing up, I would say reach out to us and give us a call or email one of us. So you can email myself, and I'll put my contact information back over in the chat in just a couple minutes. And we can get you in touch with the right person to make sure that everything is showing up correctly on your end. So we can work on that. It's possible that they might be showing up as no. They may have some documents that they need to submit that they haven't submitted yet, so that's a possibility. But just kind of reach out to us and we can help make sure that everything is showing up correctly. And if that doesn't answer your question, feel free to send over a message and let us know, and we can help you through that. And Mark, we do have a couple more questions that have come through. One is, how can we get added to the ProCenter listserv?
Oh, thank you. If you have a Professional Center account right now, you should be part of that. If that's not the case, we haven't sent emails out this summer, so we haven't started back this fall. If that's not the case and you're just concerned, then I would encourage you to send an email to cfnc@northcarolina.edu, and we'll be glad to put you on there. So that email address is cfnc@northcarolina.edu, and you might have that. It's probably a couple screens back, so I'm sorry, April. But cfnc@northcarolina.edu, and say, please make sure I'm on the ProCenter listserv. Thank you.
Okay. And do you mind at some point this morning maybe sending that over in the chat as well?
Sure, I'll be glad to do that here in just a moment.
Oh, no, you're fine. And I've got some more questions that have come through for you.
Great.
Can the counselor send electronic transcripts through CFNC or only students?
It is only students. So it's something that we've tried to take the burden off of educators for this process, and it's the students that need to initiate the transcript request.
Okay. And we have an attendee. Yeah, we have an attendee that said that if with the RDS not showing up completed, what's happened to them is the student did not connect their CFNC account to the correct school. And so the student may want to go back into their CFNC account and make sure they have it connected to your school. Perhaps they've transferred over, or they had it connected to their middle school still. So you might want to just double check that they have it connected to the correct school. So we appreciate that.
May I address one other that I see? It just came to my screen here about transcripts.
Yeah.
I see one, a good question. This is from Anthony. Counselors are responsible, this is stated as a question. Counselors are responsible for uploading transcripts to CFNC? ? You are not. I know there are other systems out there which require educators to do that, but our system is the official system that's tied to PowerSchool, that's tied to the Department of Public Instruction. So our system goes into PowerSchool, pulls the latest data, and makes those data available to the colleges where the student has asked the data to go. And when I'm using the term data intentionally here because one of the other benefits we have is that it is giving the raw data to the institutions. They can download it as a PDF if they'd like, but they also, for instance, ECU is an institution that imports that data and actually puts it into their student information system. So they have a lot of capabilities, a lot of manipulation capabilities with those data. So no, you would not have to upload that. And if they request it, again, let's say during college application week next month, it automatically puts that final request in queue. So it's one less thing for them to think about at the end of the year, and it's all free. If they send 5, if they send 10, all of those transcripts are free for the schools, the colleges, and the students.
Thank you, Mark. And we've got more questions coming through. Someone's asked if we're having issues updating our email address because the email address can't be verified. Who can assist with that?
Now, is this, I'm trying to make sure I understand the context. Is this in the context of professional tools or creating a CFNC.org account? And I'll be glad to chat with you.
Okay, yeah, maybe I just assigned you the question, so you might want to double check.
That's good.
And
thank you.
Actually, we had someone ask if that happens with a student. So I guess they're wondering, and I'll send this question over to you also. They're wondering student, and then we're wondering with a counselor. So that would be the professional center.
Yeah, so it sounds like, okay, this is interesting. I'd like to make sure I read those carefully, and I look forward to responding there.
Okay, so just hold tight on those questions, those of you that have those, and once we're finished with this Q&A and kind of move on to best practices panel, hopefully Mark will have time to chat with you and assist you with that. We have a question about students not showing up in the professional center. So for example, you may have 150 seniors and half of them are showing up. And what usually that issue is the school connection. That's pretty much always the issue, and Mark or anyone else is welcome to chime in if you know of another reason, but it's usually a school connection. So we do have some schools, like I've spent time in classrooms before at the beginning of senior year especially, although if you can do it earlier, like freshman year, then you make sure they're connected to the right school immediately. But I've done a lot of sessions before the beginning of senior year where we come in, make sure students have their CFNC account set up. If it's already set up, make sure they can log in, they're connected to the right school, and just kind of kicking them off on the right, path to make sure that they have everything set up, since they will use their CFNC account for so much. They, of course, can browse the careers, but on top of that, they'll be applying to most of their colleges in North Carolina off CFNC, electronic transcript, RDS, and so that can help to make sure that it's connected, early on. Did anyone else have anything to add about why they perhaps wouldn't show up?
This is Mark. I agree. That is 90% of the time the issue, and I would just add to what you're saying that this could be, I think, a helpful communication piece as you think about things leading up to C2C, to have them check their school connection. Because, for instance, when the transcript piece comes, when it's time for them to send a transcript, they'll need to be connected to the appropriate school. So that's a good. It's a good tip, not just for you from a data perspective, but for them to get the tasks done.
I have another question for you. If a student applies through CFNC, so I'm assuming this means that they've started their application on CFNC, and we do have a couple that would perhaps link them to Common App. It's the college's preference, so perhaps it links them to Common App, and they're wondering, which I know the answer, but I'll let Mark talk about it. Does the Common App side get updated about the transcript as well? So if it's been received or sent or whatever it might be.
A good question. It does not. Those are two independent processes. But I think that's a really good point. Good idea. We that kind of thing is not in place at the current time.
Yeah, and I think it's important for everyone to remember that CFNC or Common App are two completely different organizations, entities. We don't communicate really in any way, shape, or form. And sometimes that's a misconception from folks of two completely different things. If we're linking to an application on Common App off from CFNC, it's just because that college, which like I said, there's not many, but it just means that that college has said, we really are just going to use Common App for, whatever, for a specific reason. So the two systems don't currently talk to each other. Okay? All right, so I have a couple more questions that have come in, and that is, sorry, there's so many on here. Let me make sure I get the right one to read. So I have two students who have done a transcript request to be sent to a college, but they're not seeing the transcript request on their CFNC transcript summary.
Thank you. That as we were just speaking a moment ago of RDS, it sounds like a similar issue. That's typically what we run into, is that the school connection is not there, such that you as an educator cannot see it. If you'd like for us to take a look, please drop us an email. You can email cfnc@northcarolina.edu. We'll be glad to take a look at your particular instance and make sure that that's what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. And here's another one for you, Mark. And then we'll be stopping questions in just a moment so we can move on to the best practices panel. But this person has a student who has created multiple accounts over the years. The student has 7 accounts, not uncommon. How can I get help in the extra accounts and possibly deleting them now that he's a senior and he just has the one account where he's completing RDS and applications?
Yes, a great question. The first thing that I would that would be nice to do, and I know this can be challenging, is to pick the one you want to keep. Pick the one that has the most information in it, such as assessments, maybe if they've started work on an application. So pick the one with the most in it, and then, and I'm going to turn to others virtually here today, I think I would probably call the team on the CFNC toll-free number that handles the account issues and ask for assistance there. Let me turn to others and see if you have better guidance there than that.
No, I think that's the best guidance, and that is very common, as we said, for students to have multiple accounts. And so I think that, one, it's helpful if we can keep them from having so many accounts, but in reality, they'll have several. So what Mark said, making sure that you are identifying the one that they plan on doing everything through, and having that information to log in. Okay, if you have any other questions about that, feel free to send them over.
Can I add just one other thing?
Yes, please.
Many of you might not have had opportunity during the last year with so much going on to see in the new version of the site, I call it new, it was a year ago now, that there are some good on-screen capabilities for recovery of username and password. So if you'll just go to the login screen of cfnc.org, and it will guide the user there. They can click on, have I forgotten my username? They can click there. Have I forgotten my password? I can click there. And then it can help solve many of their issues just with the on-screen without calling. Some students will need to call, but maybe they wouldn't have to. Just a thought.
And we have just one final question before we move on to the best practices panel. If there's a student who has sent their transcript through CFNC, but they've reached out to the college and the college says, no, I'm so sorry, we don't seem to have it, what would the next steps be for the student or the counselor?
Thank you. My best suggestion there is to look up, number one, to see if indeed it did go through. Both the student through the App Hub and the professional through Professional Center or Professional Tools can check that. So if it is successful from that perspective, then the transaction ID, that confirmation number, it's helpful to give to the institution so that they can look it up. Again, if it's been just a day, then it's very likely that they haven't had a chance to process that. So give the institution a couple of weeks, and then give them that transaction ID such that they can look it up.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, and we'll have a slide at the end of the presentation that talks about the other webinars we have this week, but we also have one later this week that will specifically be on applications, transcripts, and fee waivers. And so we're going to spend some time talking about those as well. So if you have any further questions after you leave this morning and you think, oh, I really would love some more information about applications or transcripts or whatever it might be, feel free to join that one as well. And that's going to be the entire topic. So we know that folks have a lot of questions about that. And so we're happy to have a session dedicated to that one as well. Feel free to continue sending questions over and we'll work through those. And the ones that didn't have questions answered yet, they've been sent over to Mark. So now that he can mute himself, he'll be able to assist you with those. So we appreciate Mark giving all of that information to us this morning. And so now what we'd like to do is switch over to a best practices panel. And so we have a school counselor from North Brunswick High School over here on the eastern part of the state who I know I've worked with for a really long time, and I've spent time with her in the classroom doing college application week and other events during Countdown to College, and she always has such great energy and fun ideas, and the students I know look to her to help through this whole process. So we'd like to kick off with Christina, and we'll if you guys have questions as she goes through, just let us know. Go ahead, Christina. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Christina Lazari Oliver. I'm one of the counselors at North Brunswick High School. And like April said, I've worked with her for many years. Not showing her age, but a lot of years. And it used to be college application week, but now they've turned it into a month. So I'm just going to kind of explain to you what I do leading up to this, but also what I do during the month. That has been helpful. Last year was a little different, obviously because of COVID, but what this year our plans are and going forward. So leading up to the month of the Countdown to College month, I go starting next week. Well, actually it's this week. I'm going to be going into English 4 classes. I know this doesn't hit all of my seniors because there are seniors that take it next semester, but it does hit a lot of the seniors. I go into the English 4 classes and I make sure they just have a CFNC account. And if they don't, we make the account. If they do, we get that information out. So like Mark, like April was saying, to make sure it's connected to our school, make sure they have their username and password, they have it written down. I also go through a little bit of each of the sections of CFNC to show them, hey, this is where you find this. This is how you look for colleges. Just to prepare them for this month, talk a little bit about it, say it's going to be starting in October. These are what the weeks are going to look like for you. But basically to make sure that those accounts are put in place. That's the most important part, because what I find is we spin our wheels. We're doing a lot of work just making those accounts or finding out what their username or password is and that type of thing. So that's what I do prior to the month. So during the first week, I know they talked a little bit about RDS. During the first week, I try to focus on residency determination is the big one that I try to focus on, getting them to sit down with their parents, start that conversation with them about what this is going to look like, what information they're going to need, especially that the social security number is the kicker. I know that's a big part of RDS as well as the FAFSA. And every year you're going to have students whose parents say, I don't want to give that information. Make sure they're aware and prepared that they're going to probably have to appeal, especially when it comes to RDS. We even had a teacher last year whose daughter had to appeal because the teacher did not give her daughter her social. So it is a process. So to talk to them about that process, where they find RDS. One of the biggest things with the RDS is that all schools require that, even if they fill it out on the Common App. And that's something too that I talked to them that first week, going back, sorry to backtrack a little bit, but CFNC has a lot of applications. However, I know there are some schools that take the Common App and not the CFNC applications. So if you have some of those schools with the Common App, you do still need to fill out the RDS, and that is still through CFNC. So having those CFNC accounts are very important. So again, the RDS is what I focus on. I was going to say CFNC has a lot of resources, really good resources. There is a form. It's not a form. It's like a, it has RDS and what you need for that and what you need for the FAFSA, and it's side by side. And I always give that to students too, so they know when they go home to their parents what information they're going to need for both of those forms. So that's what I do on week 1. And then week 2 is, again, doing that same information, making sure they have everything ready to go for college application week. Also, we do financial aid that week. So we did last year an online financial aid night for our parents. We didn't have as good of show as I'd like, but hopefully this year we may be able to do both an online and an in-person. But we did do a virtual session on financial aid. I have a very good relationship with a financial aid person at our local community college. So I always have her involved because she answers a lot of questions that I can't answer. I am not the guru on financial aid or the FAFSA. There are a lot of different situations out there. And I always tell the students to call the school that they're interested in going in, those financial aid offices, or talk to you know, the person at a college, even your local community college, even if you don't plan on going there. They are very helpful in the financial aid offices if you have a strange case, because there are a lot of different home situations out there. Who do we put on the FAFSA? All those type of things. But this is what I focus in on that week, is just financial aid stuff. So I send out information about scholarships. Where do you find scholarships? Where do you apply for money? What is the FAFSA? I do it a lot through Google Classroom. We have a Google Classroom for our seniors. So I send a lot of information out through their Google Classroom about this during that week, but they know this week is basically all about money. So I send them how to do this, how to get it. Our parents also sign up for that Google Classroom. So if you guys have that access, it is a good thing to have a Google Classroom for your seniors through the counseling department to send out this type of information. So then week 3 is college application week. So I've been doing this for many, many, many years. Every year I kind of tweak it, I change it. It basically is what works for you. So we only pick one day. Some people like to do all week. I like to do one day and block that out for computer time. So if you have a computer lab, if you have a media center where you can block out time for that whole day just to have students coming in and out to help them with these applications. Now, it is all week, obviously, so I try to do it more towards the beginning of the week so that if there's questions, if they need help, if they need to come back, they can do it one-on-one with us during the week. However, I'd like them somewhere in the media center, and I know April has come out to help us before. You can talk to your local CFNC rep to see if they could come out. We've had people from the college come out and help, our local community college. I've had people from UNCW come help. So, because we're by UNCW, but I've, just to help them with those applications. Once they fill them out, I've done different things. I don't know if CFNC still does this, but I still have a plethora of stickers. You'd be surprised how much kids love stickers. It says, I applied to college, and they get very excited about those. So every application they fill out, they would get a sticker. And also last year, I think it was last year or the year before, we had some prizes from our community college, as well as like some certificates to like McDonald's. And so when kids filled out an application, they got to put their name in a raffle, and we raffled off just prizes for them, just for, filling out applications and being a part of this, and, that type of thing. Now, as far as the teachers, I would make a list of the students who signed up. So they would sign up on a sheet saying what period they could come and do the applications. And I would email all the teachers and let them know what period that student signed up to come and fill out applications. I did suggest to those students to please choose an elective. If I saw that they were trying to get out of a core class but had 3 other electives, I would move them to that elective class. So that is how I do college application week. And then the last week, obviously, is just to clean up. So anything, one-on-one appointments with the students, if they have questions, if they need anything, just reaching out to them. I want to piggyback a little bit on what Mark said. I use my professional tools all the time, especially when it comes to sending the transcript. I know there was a question about a college, says they haven't received it. There's been quite a few colleges that I have seen them export the transcript and download it, and I see the time and the date of when they did that, but we're telling the student that they didn't receive it. So it took me making a phone call and saying, I see that you exported it on this date at this time for this student, and all of a sudden they did have it. So that is something, that is a good tool for your background knowledge too when you're talking to colleges on behalf of that student. Because I know a lot of times it comes back on us that we didn't send it, or we didn't do what we were supposed to and we really did, or it didn't go through CFNC when it really did. So that is a great tool to use. I use it quite often. And I also use it for the FAFSA, finish the FAFSA. It's really nice to see what the students are missing and to help them through those pieces. So yeah, that's basically what we do at North. And like I said, every year I kind of tweak it. I make it a little different. I try different things. But I would encourage all counselors to use your resources that CFNC has. They have so many, especially for this too. Use them, take advantage of them. Most of them, I'm pretty sure most of them are free. I've never paid for any of them. So I would use what they have. The students get very excited about it if you're excited about it. Oh, and one other thing that I forgot to mention, we also get the teachers involved. We have them post outside their doors where they went to college, and CFNC also offers this. It says, ask me about where I went to college, and they decorate them and they put them on their door. It's really nice to see like teachers also get involved with it so kids can ask them questions. And I think that's it.
Thank you so much, Christina. I think that was very helpful to give folks some different ideas. I know that we have a variety of folks on today. Some folks that perhaps haven't done this before, or maybe even last year was their first year doing it, in a virtual world, and other folks that are more seasoned and have done it for different years. So I think people can get a lot out of the different events that you might want to have during the month, and also get a lot knocked out with the students. And we did have a comment come through, not a question, but they said, I think another good tool to use is the CFNC report to see how many students accounts have already been set up, and then compare that with your current roster of senior accounts that's provided by PowerSchool. So this counselor had 36 seniors who did not have accounts as of last week. So that was very helpful to him to make sure that their accounts were set up before October arrived, so that when you are starting the process during the month of October, that you aren't necessarily starting it with, okay, well, let's start your CFNC account, because as we know, some of our students can get an account made very quickly in 5 minutes, and we have others that, I know this because I've been in the classroom with you for a long time, that might take the entire class period trying to get their CFNC account set up. So it's helpful if it's set up in advance, and then you can just get going right away on whatever activity you want to do for that month. Christina also mentioned, if you want to have volunteers come in, to help with that, we encourage you to reach out to your local colleges who are nearby. Their admissions folks love to come into the schools on a normal year and help. And they're not just there to help their students apply to that specific school. They're there to help them apply to whatever institution they want to. And everyone is happy to do that. And in addition, your CFNC reps are available to do that as well. And Brittany Privet, who is one of our reps, sent over in the chat the link to where you can find your CFNC rep, just in case you're not sure, who they are or how to reach out to them. We've got 7 regional reps across the state, and then 2 Spanish service representatives. We only have 1 for the rest of the year because we have 1 who just went out on maternity leave. But the other rep, one is Ms. Ramirez, is trying to handle the whole state. So we have lots of resources for you. So I'm going to stop now and pass this over to Callie Kresley. She is a college advisor with the Appalachian State College Advising Corps, and she's got some wonderful information to share with you this morning. Welcome, Callie, and thank you.
Thank you so much, April, and hi, everybody. Yes, I am going to kind of piggyback off of Christina and share what we did at the high school that I serve at last year for College Application Week. This is my second year serving in the College Advising Corps, and we're hoping to do something similar at Avery High School this year. I serve at Avery County High School, which is over in Newland, so kind of opposite side of the state. We're right on the border of Tennessee, and we're pretty small. Last year we had about 136 seniors total. A few, kind of came and went as the school year went on, but we graduated with a class of 136. And we are very proud of our college application numbers from last year. We had about 78% of our students submit one or more college applications, which was 105 students, and we had about 35% submitting 3 or more. So a big chunk of that 1 or more was our community college students. But we did see a big jump last year compared to recent previous years in the number of college applications that our senior class submitted. So I'm really happy to be able to kind of take a chance to share with you guys how we brought those numbers up. And College Application Week was a really, really big role in that. That was a chance for us to kind of help students get excited about applying to college in general. And then we also gave them a lot of opportunities to learn more about the college application process and get help with those applications during both college application weeks and leading up to them. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you guys sort of what that looked like for us last year. Great. So we did a lot of prep work for College Application Week, and the biggest thing for me is I just wanted to make sure that all of the seniors knew that College Application Week was happening. They knew what it was. They knew kind of what the process was for applying through CFNC. So one thing that I utilized last year and I've been utilizing this year as well that has been super beneficial with not just College Application Week and college applications, but every aspect of the college process is every week on Fridays, I send what I call my weekly updates and reminder emails to our senior class and then all of their parents as well to just kind of keep them in the loop. So we send notifications about deadlines, upcoming events, tasks that they need to be working on. And so those emails were a really great way for me to start plugging College Application Week well in advance. I shared with them, what College Application Week was, how it worked, the process through applying for CFNC so that they were all aware. Of course, not all students check their emails, but for the ones that did, it was very, very helpful. Another way I kind of promoted College Application Week in advance is I got a list of all of the schools that were going to be free to apply to over that 2-week period. And I just gave those out to every single senior I could possibly hand it out to. So I was going around to English classrooms, discussing College Application Week, handing out the free application lists. If I, sat in a meeting with a student, I would give those out as well. And that just kind of got them excited, I think, to see the actual list of schools that were free because, they hear, oh, well, all these schools are free. But then when they actually look at the list and see a few that they're interested in, I think that helps to get them excited about it. Again, lots of email and in-class reminders. The 2 weeks before that period, I went around to the senior English classrooms and other senior heavy classes multiple times. I went in a couple weeks before it happened. I went a week before it happened. I went the Friday before just to real quick pop my head in and remind them about it. We posted flyers up all over the school that detailed what College Application Week was and highlighted what some of our events and programming were for those couple weeks, which I'll get to in my next slide. And then I created this bulletin board over on the right as well that I am pretty proud of. It was one of my better bulletin boards last year. I used some, a gold shiny background to kind of catch everybody's eye, discussed what College Application Week was, and highlighted some of our events that week. Another way that I kind of promoted for College Application Week. April, if you don't mind going back to the last slide, sorry about that. I did do some workshops leading up to College Application Week that I think were helpful for kind of preparing students for that process. So one week I did college application workshops in all of the senior heavy classrooms. I did do a virtual option as well. We were mostly in person last year at Avery. We had about a quarter of our seniors that were all virtual. So I offered a virtual option for them and parents as well. But the first week I did a college application workshop. I showed them how to apply to colleges through CFNC as well as the Common App. And then the following week we did a workshop on how to write an effective college essay. And I did find that both of those were very helpful for my students. They did give me a lot of good positive feedback. So I did do those a week or two before college application week, just to kind of put them in the best position possible to get started with those, so that they'd have a plan going in. Maybe they had already started working on their essay, and that was very helpful for us. I worked with the guidance counselors on all of the programming I'm about to share in the next slide. If you don't mind switching over, April. Thank you. So this is a little bit of a breakdown of what we did last year during the actual 2 college application weeks. So pretty similar to Christina, we offered an open workshop space in student services, but instead of doing that during a 1-day period, we did do it every school day for the full 2 weeks, which was a little bit crazy, but I think, we're going to try to do something similar this year. I think it was pretty effective for us. It just worked well at our school. So essentially, instead of taking appointments as I usually would for student meetings, everything was on a drop-in basis, no appointments required. Students were aware that they could come in and work with me anytime that they wanted to. We kind of set up the space to be a little bit more inviting. We had lots and lots of free snacks, candy. I played some music during that, which I actually think was kind of a good way to kind of pull students in. They would hear, music faintly down the hallway and be interested in what was going on in there. And I did put up some, just some small decorations as well, just to kind of make the space a little bit more exciting and inviting. We had a sign-in sheet to track participation. That was really important for me specifically as a college advisor, because we do keep track of all of our interactions with students. But that's also helpful looking back to see, what days and class periods were the most popular, which students came, most frequently, and things like that. And we did have an incentive for this. Students who came and workshopped for 45 minutes or longer over the course of the 2-week period got a free college swag prize. So about a couple months before college application week, I was emailing every college and university admissions office and bookstore that I could get my hands on, asking for donations for this programming. And a lot of schools sent me pennants, t-shirts, stickers, pens and pencils, water bottles, just whatever they were willing and able to give. And we used that prize incentive to kind of keep students coming back. And that I think was helpful for us as well. Like Christina said, they just love stickers. I mean, I had students who would stay for 45 minutes just for a sticker, so it does work. They were really excited about that. And then lastly, during that 2 weeks, kind of another prize incentive that we offered is we gave our student that applied to the most colleges during the 2 college application weeks a free $50 Amazon gift card. So students just needed to send me a list of where they applied, maybe screenshots, saying that they had submitted their applications as proof. And we had a few students that were, really kind of neck and neck with that, and they would, kind of check in with each other. Well, how many of you applied to? Well, I'm gonna, apply to a few more so that I'm ahead of you, and all this stuff. And I think our student who won applied to about 35 schools over that 2 weeks. And of course, college application week is a great time to do that because so many schools are free, so you don't really have that barrier of students who might be struggling to pay those college application fees, which of course can really add up. So that was just kind of a rundown of what we did last year. Again, we're hoping to do something similar this year. I guess it will be, over the course of 1 week instead of 2, but I am planning times to do those workshops. We're going to set up this open workshop space during those 2 weeks and try to just kind of do a repeat because we were really happy with how it went.
Thank you so much, Callie. That was such good information and tips on how to make the week fun, or the month fun for students. And I love the music. I think just setting the vibe for the students to want to come in and do it, and having a fun area for them to work through all of this, because it is stressful during any year to go through all of this as a senior, let alone during COVID. And so I think anything we can do to help make it fun and light and have a positive energy in there as they're doing residency and their application and all that is really great. And as Kelly said, if you all are thinking, oh, the swag sounds like a great idea, I would encourage you guys to start getting in touch with colleges ASAP to see if they have anything they can share with you so that you have, some swag possibly to offer students. I think you'll find some a lot of colleges are happy to provide you with certain things. So I would be in touch with schools soon, because believe it or not, October is coming in just a couple of weeks. Feel free to continue to send your questions over in the question area. And in the meantime, I wanted to make sure that we reminded everyone about the other programs that we have coming up this week. So we have tomorrow, we have 2 programs coming up. In the morning, we'll have FAFSA tools that will specifically talk about the FAFSA tracker and challenge through My Future NC, as well as to finish the FAFSA, which you have access to in your professional center. And then tomorrow afternoon, we'll have a program on residency in relation to Countdown to College and College Application Week. And on that, we'll have an RDS expert here with the state, as well as Juanes Ramirez, who is one of our statewide Spanish service reps. And he'll be able to answer questions and help with anything you have for your immigrant families and undocumented families. And so we'll have good resources for that for you tomorrow afternoon. And then Wednesday afternoon, we'll have our session that's specifically dedicated to College Application Week on admissions applications, transcripts, and fee waivers. And then last but not least, Thursday morning, we have a final program this week, which I'm very excited about as well. That's going to talk about college access and COVID-19 and how to keep students on track and excited for post-secondary education. And we'll have a social worker as well as a financial aid professional on to talk a little bit about different resources. And that one is definitely meant to be interactive. And so we encourage you for that one to make sure that you are participating and sending questions in and perhaps coming off from mute, depending on how many folks attend. And if you want to register for any of those, you can do so by visiting cfnc.org/events to register. Okay. And so one final thing I wanted to make sure that I mentioned is that if you have not signed up to be a site for Countdown to College, I encourage you to do so, especially if you have heard about the stickers and you're excited. We love our high school seniors. They get excited about fun things, as simple as a sticker. And so make sure that you go to, there's a link that Brittany also put in the chat that is the place where you can register. If you log out of here and forget to click on it, you can go to cfnc.org/C2C, and you'll find a section for students, for parents, and for educators. And within that educator section is embedded a link where you can register to be a site. And so that's helpful so that we can push out to you reminders about technology guidelines, for example, which is something you want to make sure that you check on in advance of College Application Week, and make sure that nothing is locked or hidden from where students can access it on your campuses. But then also receive reminders about the week. We put a link in the chat earlier. I believe by end of day today, we're going to have an initial list of colleges that are waiving their fees during College Application Week. And as that list might morph or change, it's important to be a registered school so we can communicate with you in addition to getting those stickers. And the reason we said an initial list for College Application Week, the ones that are going to waive, is that we do have some colleges that decide later to waive, not necessarily at this point in time, mid-September. So we pretty much every year have a handful of colleges that as we get closer to College Application Week say, we'd actually like to waive our fees. And so that list is always morphing and changing. And so what I don't encourage you all to do is to take that initial list, print everything out this week, and think that you're being completely, preparing in advance, which would normally be a good thing. But for this, if you plan on printing out the list of colleges that are free to apply to during College Application Week, I would encourage you to wait until we get much closer to College Application Week to make sure you have the most final list. But we'll be excited this week, definitely, hopefully by end of day today, to get that list added to cfnc.org/C2C. And we had a couple other questions come through, and so I encourage you guys to keep sending them through. If you want to reach out to a college for free swag, I would reach out to admissions, their admissions department specifically, and they'll probably be able to provide you with some different things. And so definitely reach out to admissions for that. And let's see, the webinars are being recorded and they will be available later. CFNC has a YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it yet, we have so many resources on there for you. And we have a lot of different playlists that you can browse through if you want to send some resources, for example, over to parents, on financial aid, or whatever it might be. But we're going to create a special playlist on our YouTube channel where we will have all 5 of these programs listed. And so feel free to check that out. We do send the videos over to our marketing firm to clean them up and make sure that, you know, anything that needs to be edited out at the beginning or the end is handled. So for example, this Q&A at the end that I'm doing right now might be edited out. And so it does take a week or 2 for them to be listed, but we will have them listed there soon. Again, it's the CFNC's channel on YouTube, and we will have a C2C Education Professionals Week playlist there for you to go. And so they will be available. And so I think that there's a couple other questions that perhaps we'll just send a message over to. I try to answer questions verbally that are perhaps good for the group. But I do have a question I think that might have been meant for Callie, either Callie or Christina. What was in your college application workshop? I think, Callie, you might have mentioned that you did a workshop for College Application Week. And so what all did you do in that workshop? Did you talk about how to create a CFNC account, or what else might it have been? And Callie, you might be muted. Let's see. Callie might be muted. Okay. Well, I'll try and I wasn't there, but we have done different college application workshops for students. So while I can't necessarily talk about what she might have done, we will typically make sure they have their CFNC account created, but then also familiarize the students on the different resources that they'll need throughout the month or just for the week. So make sure that they know how to access where the applications live, the transcripts live, RDS, and then also oftentimes during that month, we'll make sure we know how, make sure students know where to access the scholarship search functionality on CFNC in that pay section. If we're doing a workshop just for College Application Week, I've seen different schools do it very differently. So I'll give you a couple of different examples. So we may have students, you know, come in, and if they know their login for CFNC and they can remember it, go ahead and sit down at a computer, and there will be a piece of paper printed out with steps on what we want them to do or what you want them to do, reminders to start on CFNC, log in, send your transcript, whatever it might be. And if they don't remember how to log into their CFNC account, perhaps come up to a master computer at the front where the school counselor is, and they're in the professional center, and they're looking up their password and sending them information to reset their password. And so kind of having them come in and get started. And you'll find that students oftentimes are at different places in this process. So some of them haven't started one application at all. And so we will make sure that you have them start on CFNC and get to the application center and just start working on those applications. And then you'll find you'll have other students that have done some of the work for College Application Week at home. And so they perhaps have started some applications and are coming in to finish it, or they've already done the application and they're just coming in to do RDS. And if you have students kind of work through all of that, oftentimes what we'll do during these workshops is have them move on to the scholarship section on CFNC and start working on some of the scholarship applications that they can do there. And so like we've said, you'll have students in different areas working on different things. So hopefully that answers your question. And if you have any other questions, feel free to send them over. Definitely take a look in the chat. We have lots of different links that we have helped you with. And Mark sent over a message in the chat a few moments ago that said that many educators find the how-to videos helpful. For example, how to create an account, how to send a transcript, how to search for scholarships. And that's within our YouTube channel as well. And so Mark just sent that link over. Thank you. And just as a couple of reminders, the links you'll find in here, how to register as a site, reaching out to your CFNC rep, the YouTube playlist, and in 24 hours you will have a follow-up email sent to you. So whatever email you use to initially register for this, and that will have a link for your CAU credits, and hopefully we'll see you at some other programs this week. Does anyone else have anything they want to add for the good of the group? Okay, well, thank you all for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow morning to talk about FAFSA tools. Have a good rest of your day.